Big world problems are the main topic at the European Council meeting in Brussels. Leaders from the European Union are talking about the Israel-Gaza war, the Ukraine war, and a new trade fight with the United States. Many of these leaders were also at the NATO summit yesterday. There, they agreed to spend 5% of their GDP on defense. They hope this will help them in trade talks with the Trump team. Now the US is facing a new kind of economic fight. This time, it is coming from Europe. Donald Trump said the US will put a 10% tax, called a tariff, on all imported goods. In response, the EU added a 20% tax on many important US products. This started a trade war that affects more than $900 billion in goods. It includes things like soybeans and airplanes. This is making people in Washington and on Wall Street very worried. Trump's plan is simple. He wants a 10% tariff on all goods made outside the US. He also wants a higher tax of 30% to 45% on Chinese products, depending on what they are. And there is an extra 12% tax on products from countries outside NAFTA, which includes the US, Canada, and Mexico. This is not just a plan for negotiation. It is a strict policy with little room to change. The EU said if the US does not remove these tariffs, they will do the same. They will add a 20% tax on important American products. This is not just a threat. In 2024, EU countries sold $580 billion worth of goods to the US. A 20% tariff would cost European companies about $116 billion. After changing for currency rates, the real cost could be closer to $95 billion. At the same time, US companies sell $320 billion worth of goods to Europe every year. A 20% tariff means they will now pay $64 billion more in taxes. Big American companies are on the EU's target list. These include Boeing, John Deere, Netflix, and Disney. Brussels is very serious. The last big trade fight like this was in 2018. That one lasted years in court. But Trump's new plan is fast and clear. He calls it the Trump tariff doctrine. It is a policy to protect American companies, punish imports, and make other countries pay more. But the EU's answer shows how risky this is. European reaction. French economy minister Bruno Le Maire spoke on national TV. He said, "We do not want to cause destruction, but we are ready. Our list is long: Boeing, soybeans, bourbon." Germany's Minister Robert Habeck warned that his country could lose $110 billion in trade with the US over 10 years. Germany is already making deals in East Asia to replace lost US sales. They want to sell machinery, chemicals, and luxury cars to other countries. The EU is being very smart. They are choosing products that are important to the US economy. They are also choosing products from states like Kentucky, Ohio, and Missouri. These are places Trump needs to win in the next election. The EU wants to use political pressure, not just economic damage. Economic effects in the US. As this fight grew in Europe, the US stock market reacted fast. Boeing's stock price dropped by 4.3% in just 1 hour. This happened right after Europe confirmed its new tariffs. At the same time, US bond markets went up. This happened because the Federal Reserve now expects inflation to rise. The Peterson Institute says if the EU keeps these tariffs, US GDP could slow down. Inflation could rise by 1.3%. This matters a lot. The Fed might have to raise interest rates by 0.25% to 0.5%. This would make loans, mortgages, and business borrowing more expensive. It would hurt people who want to buy homes or start businesses. The Chicago Fed says some industries will be hit harder. These include car makers, electronics, and home appliances. They use a lot of imported materials. In just 6 months, their prices could rise by 4%. This would push up consumer prices by 1% to 1.3%. More than just trade, the EU is also connecting this fight to the environment. They have a law called the Net Zero Industry Act. Under this law, they can remove special trade benefits. They also plan to add a carbon tax on electric cars from the US. This could add $5,000 to the price of a Tesla Model Y in Europe. It shows that Europe is ready to fight back using all the tools they have. What happens next? There are three things that might happen next in the US-EU trade talks. First, the US might allow some friendly countries to avoid the 10% tariff. This would give space for a deal. Second, the EU might lower its tariffs to 15% and take the US to the World Trade Organization in 2026. Third, and worst, both sides might refuse to back down. This could cause more global inflation and more economic problems. The European Commission says they still want to solve this with talks. But if the US does not agree to make exceptions, this won't just be a fight over steel and aluminum. It could turn into a global tariff war. That would change the cost of goods in many industries around the world.